Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today, where we have ourselves yet again another banger. Because we're talking about running backs here who we're going to start and sit in week 3 of fantasy football. And you know what? We're damn well going to have some fun doing it. Now, right before we get into every matchup, every player, every game, we got to talk about how did we do just last week? Well, let's go over our accuracy report for week 2. And another super solid week 2 overall at the running back position. We had a total of 63 running backs we gave a start or sit designation to that completed their games this past week. Out of those 63, 45 of them were given the correct designation of a start or a sit. Some of our biggest misses. Tony Pollard. All of a sudden, Tony Pollard looking like Alvin Kamara light out there. What about J.D. McKissick? Right place, right time. Really capitalized this past week. And then Devin Singletary. Damn it, Devin. Looking like you know what he's doing out there. He was a miss for us as well. Some of the biggest hits we had. What about James White? I mentioned everybody, last week that James White has this opportunity in this offense after a couple of fumbles with Ramondre Stevenson and with Damian Harris. If he could see some added volume, he did. He capitalized. Leonard Fournette. Why do I have Leonard Fournette? I received a lot of comments down below saying I don't listen to the news because I obviously didn't hear that Ronald Jones was the starter. Well, Leonard Fournette outscored Ronald Jones, outtouched Ronald Jones, crossed the 10-point threshold, so I had to throw it in there just for those comments. What about Saquon Barkley? Why is he a hit? Well, I had him as a sit last week. He broke off that 41-yard run, and I got a little bit nervous. He looks good going forward, but had him as a sit last week. It worked out, so that's why he's one of my biggest hits. But first, we got to get you entered into our September giveaway. The month is almost over, so you got to get in on it right now. An autographed Justin Jefferson jersey, a Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0, and a Trevor Lawrence rookie card. The bundle valued at over $250. What do you have to do to be entered? It's easy. Come play Prize Picks with us. Sign up for a new account. Either download the app or visit prizepicks.com. Use the referral code HEADLINERS when creating a new account. When you do that, you make the minimum $20 deposit. They'll match your deposit all the way up to $100 if you so choose. Then you can play Prize Picks with us all week long. Having a lot of success over there, a lot of people enjoying it, a lot of people winning some money, and that's what this is all about, is having more fun together as a community all throughout the week. So if you can do that, head over to prizepicks.com, create that new account, use the referral code HEADLINERS, and make that initial deposit. You'll be entered in for a chance at that giveaway here at the end of the month. Looking forward to giving that away, but now is the time that we dive into every matchup, every player, every game, and we're kicking it off Thursday Night Football, Carolina Panthers and Houston Texans. And you want to hear something crazy? Based off the first 2 weeks of the season, Christian McCaffrey currently on pace for 500 touches and over 2,700 total yards. That's just ridiculous. It's not a pace that he'll be able to hold up all throughout the season, but still, starting off crazy hot. He's the clear-cut number 1, and now he gets a super sexy matchup going up against the Houston Texans, who have allowed 242 rushing yards in just the last 2 weeks. Of course, you're going to start him, but I'm also going to head over to Prize Picks, and I'm going to smash the over, but we're not talking about rushing. We're going to go with receiving. Right now, his prop bet set at 54.5 yards receiving against the Houston Texans. I'm going to smash the over on Christian McCaffrey there on Prize Picks here this week. As for Houston, total cluster, because who's it going to be on a weekly basis, right? You got 3 running backs. They're all used between David Johnson, Phillip Lindsay, and Mark Ingram, but they're all inefficient as you can possibly be, right? Under 4 yards per carry. Ingram seems to be the guy that's going to be on the ground, but they're all scoring touchdowns, so they're all having limited upside. Now an injury to Tyrod Taylor, where opposing defenses can probably focus a little bit more on the running game and force Davis Mills to try to beat them down the field. Yeah, no. Plus, on top of all that, the Carolina defense is arguably right now the best defense in all of football. They're only allowing 8.5 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. They are completely shutting teams down, including Alvin Kamara just last week. Could one of these guys have a good game? Of course, on a weekly basis, but there's no way to tell who it's going to be, who's going to be the one that finds the end zone. For right now, going to continue to do what I've been doing with Houston all year long, and they're all in the sit column. But now it's time to stroll into some Sunday football. Got the Washington football team and Buffalo Bills. Now, I know there's concern for Antonio Gibson out there. Stay calm. Just relax. It's been 2 weeks. He isn't playing bad football at all. He's averaging 5 yards per carry, It's just that JD McKissic last week was in the right place at the right time, got a couple big plays, stole the goal line touchdown, and then all of a sudden everybody thinks JD McKissic is the lead running back in Washington. He's not. But a lot of things will be different with Taylor Heineke under center than they may have been with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center. That does play a role. JD McKissic is going to be more involved now than he would have been with Fitzmagic under center, but that is what it is going forward. We're still going to see the bulk of the volume on a weekly basis going the way of one Antonio Gibson. Now, it's not like JD McKissic came out and just dominated touches, right? He had 6 targets, not huge numbers, but he just capitalized on the volume that he got. But Buffalo, tough team to play against, right now averaging right around 11.5 points per game to opposing running backs. So that is not great, right? The Washington defense really, though, needs to step up. They need to keep this game close. They haven't played well the last couple of weeks, and a close game means more Antonio Gibson, more touchdown opportunities, and that's what we really need here this week. But JD McKissic, like I said, still going to be involved. That target share, it's going to be there probably on a weekly basis, looking at 6 to 8 targets a week with some big play potential. If you're in a PPR league, I don't mind starting JD McKissic here once again this week, but it's a little bit risky, right? It's not like a smash play where you got to throw him into your lineup. It's just something where if you're in a pinch, you need a player, you're dealing with somebody injured, maybe you had Darrell Henderson, we don't know if he plays or not. JD McKissic is an option as a flex play. Not a great option, but somebody we can pay attention to here this week. What about in Buffalo? The hell happened to them in week 2? They went off. Singletary and Moss both finished inside the top 15. If I didn't know any better, I think hell was freezing over because those guys don't ever finish in the top 15, especially together. Was it a fluke? I mean, it's kind of hard to trust, right? It's not something we've really seen in the past. But Daniel Jones just last week killed this Washington defense on the ground. Does that mean that we see Josh Allen maybe scramble a little bit more, take advantage of those same opportunities? Possible. Honestly, I need to see this happen more than just one time to think that it's not a fluke. Hopefully you're not relying on starting Devin Singletary or Zach Moss at this point of the season, because until I can prove that they're a little bit more consistent, they're staying in the sit column as well. On to Chicago and Cleveland. Now, you remember this offseason, either down in the comments section or somewhere on social media, people out there saying, I play PPR, so I'm going to pass on Nick Chubb. He doesn't catch passes. That was funny, right? Good times, right? I mean, he's currently running back 3 overall in full PPR scoring, averaging over 18.5 fantasy points per game. The guy is just super efficient, averaging right around 7 yards per carry. He's an auto start. I don't care who he plays every single week, but I'm also going to head over to Prize Picks on his prop bet here this week. Right now, it's currently set at 78.5 rushing yards, smashing the over against Chicago there for Nick Chubb this week. What about Kareem Hunt? Not overly involved, right? Maybe wanted to see a little bit more of him the past couple weeks, but we got to see Demetric Felton. Don't like to see that, but with the injury to Jarvis Landry, we could see more work for Kareem Hunt going forward, sometime in the slot, which would be very welcomed. Hopefully help him break a big play or two, plus finding the end zone. With Landry out, I'm going to give Hunt another opportunity as a flex play here this week. As for David Montgomery, we going full Monty this week? Yeah, we are, because it's really hard to sit David Montgomery. Not the greatest of matchups, difficult matchup going up against Cleveland, but what gives him that safer floor is that pass catching work, right? 4 targets just last week. Even if you turn 4 targets into 4 receptions and 35 yards, that's what, a bonus 5 points? Say he only goes out and can rush for 60 or 70. You're still looking at 11, 12 fantasy points as a floor. Not bad in a difficult matchup. We saw him succeed earlier in the year going up against the Los Angeles Rams. He can do it against Cleveland, especially with some consistency maybe at the quarterback position. Not so much the quarterback play, but it looks like with Andy Dalton potentially out, we could see Justin Fields the full game. I really believe this offense would benefit from a full-time quarterback and not playing mix and match all game long. Really let the offense start to gel and open up and work together. They could see that here this week, and that's why, once again, starting David Montgomery. On to Baltimore and Detroit. Now, do you see now why I was hesitant on the backfield of Baltimore just this last week? I mean, we saw Tyson Williams look good on the ground. I like Tyson Williams. I wish it was his job. The problem is you get Latavius Murray coming in stealing touchdowns, and that's exactly what I talked about last week. And then all of a sudden, we see a big play from Devonta Freeman. Does he see more work going forward? It's just a total cluster here, like they're trying to figure it out. It's like they want to give it to Tyson Williams, but they got to give it to the veterans to stay safe. It's a headache. However, in a matchup this week going up against the Detroit Lions, who were just absolutely brutalized by Aaron Jones, I'm going to go with the upside here and go with Tyson Williams this week. A little bit more explosive, able to get to the outside, able to catch passes, which is exactly what we saw Aaron Jones do this past week against this same Detroit Lions team. I'm worried about the touchdowns, right? Because they could get vultured at any point in time. We could see more Devonta Freeman, but this week against the Detroit Lions, I'm gambling. I'm going to start only Tyson Williams in this backfield. As for Detroit, it is so hard, right? Because Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift are basically a 50-50 split. At times this past week, we didn't even see DeAndre Swift on the field, and then all of a sudden with 2 minutes to go, they throw him out there and give him 4 or 5 targets. It's like they totally abandon it at times, which makes no sense. However, when he gets the opportunities, he's doing something with them. His name was even brought up in the press conference after the game. The coach was impressed with his play there late in the game, so I'm hoping that continues to trend that direction. Now we know Baltimore, they're going to want to run. They're going to want to control the time of possession. They want to limit the offensive possessions because all of a sudden Jared Goff doesn't look half bad with some decent weapons, but they're going to want to try to keep the ball away from him. They don't want to get into a shootout. They want to continue to run the ball and run it successfully. I'm going to start DeAndre Swift this week. I'm going to sit Jamal Williams. As of right now, that big play potential, that pass catching work, still in the favor of DeAndre Swift, and who I feel just a little bit safer with as of right now. Now move over to Indianapolis, Tennessee, and you remember just maybe even last week hearing people say, I told you Derrick Henry was going to regress. No, he's not. Last week, he just had 41 touches, 6 of which were receptions. 6 receptions for Derrick Henry. Dude only had 19 total all of last year and now already has 9 in the first 2 weeks of 2021. Derrick Henry, a PPR back. Now, y'all, that's absolutely scary, but you obviously never sit this guy. His ceiling at 237 total yards and 3 touchdowns a week? Yeah, you never sit somebody that has that type of potential. You're going to fire him up, even though it's a difficult matchup going up against Indianapolis. We've seen Chris Carson and Darrell Henderson both find success against them. So yeah, you're firing up Derrick Henry. For Indianapolis, can we just get a damn Jonathan Taylor touchdown, please? Right now, he's leading the league in carries inside the 5-yard line with 6 of them, yet has 0 touchdowns. But at least he's getting the opportunities. And getting those opportunities means at some point the touchdowns will come. The biggest question mark, the health of Carson Wentz. Does he play? He's got dual sprained ankles at this point. Does Jacob Eason move the ball down the field as much? But on the other hand, you can also say with Jacob Eason under center, they're going to rely a little bit more on the running game, and maybe that gives Jonathan Taylor more opportunities. As for Nyheim Hines, it's too inconsistent, right? He's either super involved or he's non-existent, and I absolutely hate that, partially because Marlon Mack. Why is Marlon Mack getting 5 carries? Another thing we cautioned about when they signed him here this offseason, that, hey, they re-signed him for a reason. They're going to use him only a couple times a game, just enough to irritate Jonathan Taylor owners and take away some volume. Happened just last week where he got 5 carries. I want those 5 carries going to Jonathan Taylor because I'm stingy and petty. I want more points from Jonathan Taylor. That's why I drafted him early. In this matchup going up against Tennessee, though, I don't hate this matchup. I do expect them to rely a little bit more on Jonathan Taylor. A team that is looking for a win needs to rely on their best players. If their quarterback is out, their next best player, Jonathan Taylor, get him the football and try to get yourself a win here this week. Which takes us to the Los Angeles Chargers, Kansas City Chiefs, and finally it was good to see some targets going the way of Austin Eckler, right? 9 targets for 9 receptions, 61 yards this past game. Not bad whatsoever. No immediate threat on the ground either. Not that they're going to overutilize Eckler between the tackles, but still something that he really doesn't have to worry about sharing the backfield with a whole lot. Just saw Kansas City destroyed on the ground by the Baltimore Ravens. Now, we just need these targets to continue, right? We need these targets to continue going the way of Austin Eckler to give him that safer floor. They're going to have to throw to keep pace with the Kansas City Chiefs. Coming off of a loss, Kansas City is going to try to come out and really fire on all cylinders early. The Chargers are going to have to keep pace, probably throw for all 4 quarters, which is a good thing for Austin Eckler. He's going to remain a start. For Kansas City, I know you're impatient with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The guy has absolutely struggled. And then we had Darrell Williams stealing a touchdown and a fumble late in the game for CEH. But remember, don't overvalue CEH. There's a reason why you got him in the 3rd, maybe the 4th round, depending on your league size. The guy wasn't supposed to be a top back. He's supposed to be like a top 24 to 36 back. That's why we pushed him so hard this offseason as your running back 3 and not earlier. The guy is just starting off a little bit slow. But Andy Reid is not Bruce Arians. He's not going to punish this kid to the point where he doesn't see the field. If I had to guess, they force feed him the ball the next few weeks and really try to boost his confidence because he is a player that they need as the season starts to get into the colder months. He's somebody that's going to have to be utilized more in this offense. Better days are coming. He's more of a flex option as for now. If you have better options, which means you're absolutely stacked at running back. I don't hate you for it whatsoever, but don't give up just yet. Better days are coming for CEH as of this matchup right here. He's going to remain in the start column, like I said, as a flex option for me here in week 3. Now we go to Foxborough, New England Patriots, New Orleans Saints, and Alvin Kamara owners out there in fantasy land with their buttholes puckered. Can I say buttholes? I can. Okay. Yeah, they're worried out there because the dude only has 10 targets in the first 2 games of the week. Plus, last week, only averaged 0.63 yards per carry on the ground, which is not good at all. I mean, what the heck is going on in New Orleans? Super efficient week 1. Not at all. In week 2, I mean, Jameis Winston is only throwing right around 20 times a game as is. And then last week had 3 interceptions. At one point, just chucked it down in the end zone like he had a flashback, thinking that he had Mike Evans down there for a jump ball. No, there was no Mike Evans down there for a jump ball, and it was just another interception and a stupid decision. They need to take pressure off of Jameis Winston and not force him to try to beat everybody down the field. The short routes, the checkdowns to Alvin Kamara, that's how New Orleans is going to win more ball games. If I can see that from my seat, I'm sure Sean Payton can see it from his, and I expect them to try to start getting him more involved here this week. He's obviously going to be a start for New England. Thanks, Bill. I really appreciate it. Last week, I made direct eye contact. I spoke directly to Bill Belichick and pleaded with him to not punish Damian Harris. And he listened. Damian Harris came out, another solid game, but I also preached James White because what we've seen here the first couple weeks of this season is like old school James White with Tom Brady type James White because they're utilizing him out of the backfield once again with Mac Jones under center. Plus, without Ramondre Stevenson, they're giving more touches to James White, who's been a reliable option in this offense for years. Bill Belichick loves himself some James White, and I expect that to continue here all throughout the season, getting right around 6 receptions a game. Sign me up for that, especially in some PPR. Deeper leagues, you're looking for a flex, I'll actually start both of these guys for some touchdown upside here this week. Now we go to New York for the Giants and Falcons, and Mike Davis may have huge thighs, but he also has a big problem. That big problem, Cordero Patterson, who's stealing goal line work, touchdowns, receptions out of the backfield, whatever you want to say. It's killing the value of Mike Davis. All of that was supposed to be going the way of Mike Davis, and now hardly any of it is. And plus, the Atlanta offense is just a mess. They're struggling at times getting the ball to Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley consistently. Matt Ryan out there looking lost at times. Now you add in this Cordero Patterson factor. It's tough to start Mike Davis at this point, right? I mean, until we can see more consistent volume, we can't start Cordero Patterson in most leagues as a running back because he's classified as a wide receiver. So I'm going to go ahead and just sit Mike Davis until we can see more consistency out of the backfield there in Atlanta. For New York, I think it's time. I think week 3 is it. I think they start to unleash Saquon Barkley once again. And why do I say that? Well, we knew they were going to bring him along slow, and they did. In week 1, he was only out there for 48% of the snaps. In week 2, he was out there for 84% of the snaps, and we saw that explosiveness. We saw him able to get to the outside on that 40-yard run. Old Saquon Barkley is coming back. Is he going to be what he once was? We don't know for sure yet. Can he hold up and stay healthy? He's going to get a great opportunity, though, because for the first time in his career, he's not facing stacked boxes on a consistent basis. So far, just this season, during his time on the field, he's seen base fronts, only 7 men in the box, 60% of his snaps. That's a great number with more opportunities for big plays with an explosive running back. Saquon Barkley may have been a sit last week, but no more. He's going back in the start column. Which takes us out to Pittsburgh for the Steelers and the Bengals, and going to be my Manscaped matchup of the week. Just a reminder, as soon as this video is over, head over to manscaped.com. Use the promo code HEADLINERS at checkout. Get yourself some cool items and save 20% and get free shipping. It's not just ball shavers, y'all. They got all kinds of products. Head over to manscaped.com and check them out after this show is over. But why are they my Manscaped matchup of the week? It's an interdivisional matchup against 2 teams stacked with wide receivers that have bell cow running backs as well. We could see some serious fireworks in this game. Now, a lot of people want to say, it could be a hard-hitting, back-and-forth defensive type of matchup. I just don't see it. Not with all these weapons on the field. Just think about this for a second. We don't know 100% about Deontay Johnson, but we'll include him anyway because we're nice people. With Juju, and then you got Chase Claypool, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon. Big names all over the field on both sides of the field. Now, last week we said, hey, Najee, this is the week that he finds the end zone. And it was. He's still struggling on the ground, but that pass catching upside helps him have that safe floor. He's obviously going to remain a start for us here. I love seeing him with 6 targets out of the backfield. Love, love, love that. Really boosts that floor enough to keep him as a safer-ish start until they can really open up the running game a little bit more midway through the season. Same goes for Mixon, though, right? A little bit of a down week in week 2, but he still had 21 touches. We love seeing that type of volume consistently from Joe Mixon. Now, the Pittsburgh defense on paper is way better against the run than they are the pass. But they've faced Buffalo and Las Vegas, so they haven't really been tested on the ground. I'm not shying away from Joe Mixon here whatsoever. Can't sit that volume, the touchdown upside, the pass catching ability. Both Joe Mixon and Najee Harris going to be a start for me here in week 3. Now to Jacksonville for the Jags and the Cardinals. And all offseason, it was, Chase Edmonds truthers versus James Conner truthers, and who was going to be the guy in this backfield, when in reality, we're all wrong, right? Because none of them are really overly involved in this backfield. Really, Kyler Murray is the running back 1 in Arizona. Both Conner, Edmonds, they're involved, but their ceiling is severely capped, right? There's just not much of a ceiling there at all. You really need Chase Edmonds to go out there and get 6, 7, 8 receptions to really cross that 10-point threshold. James Conner really needs a game in which they have a big lead and they can rely on him late in the game. There's just a lot of ifs and ands with these guys that really makes them not safe on a weekly basis. But now they're going up against Jacksonville. You'd think that they're going to be having a lead in this game, which would lead to more James Conner touches. That's how I see the game on paper. But he's just so touchdown dependent, and they have so many damn weapons that can score touchdowns. The insurgence of Rondale Moore only hurts the running game, because now they can get that wide receiver involved in the short passing game and basically use it like a running game. So that's going to hurt the running backs as well. It's really hard for me to start either one of these guys. Chase Edmonds having that pass catching upside will make him a safer start, in my opinion, here this week. But is the ceiling high? No. He's probably going to barely crack my top 30 this week, but still going to be a start. For Jacksonville, still a mess, right? James Robinson needs more touches. He got more touches than Carlos Hyde in week 2, outtouched him 14-2, which is great, because that was not the case in week 1. But they're always trailing. They're always going to be losing in Jacksonville. This offense in Arizona is no joke. They can score on anyone. Like I said, I expect Arizona to get an early lead, which means they're not going to be able to pound the ball consistently on the ground in Jacksonville here once again. I so bad want 2020 James Robinson back. I really do. I really wish that they'd still utilize him in the passing game and on the ground, regardless of game script. It's just not happening here this year. He's just too risky of a start. James Robinson, Carlos Hyde, neither one of them going to find themselves in the start column here in week 3. Now we go out to Denver for the Jets and the Broncos. And are you contemplating starting a Jets running back here this week? If so, are you 0-2 right now? Because you probably shouldn't be starting one yet. Now, I do like what I've seen from Michael Carter here recently. He's starting to stand out a little bit more every time he gets the ball. He's led that backfield in touches this past week with 14 total touches, and he was the only running back in the offense to get a target out of the backfield. But I believe he's still a couple weeks away. He's somebody that I will stash and pay attention to, not worth starting as of just yet, especially in a difficult matchup going up against the Denver Broncos, who only allow 65 yards rushing a game, 4th best in the NFL. I'm going to sit Michael Carter and everybody else in New York here this week, but I got my eye on him because he could be creeping up here shortly. As for Denver, we see Michael Carter's teammate, right? Javonte Williams on the other sideline there for the Denver Broncos, and he's starting to look better and better as well. It's kind of like they're in tune, like they're attached. And as one gets better, the other one is getting better, because Javonte Williams is the better running back right now in Denver, but it's still a true 50-50 split between him and Melvin Gordon. The difference is Javonte Williams, he's just so much more efficient than Melvin Gordon. The problem is Melvin Gordon has one big play and a touchdown, which skews his overall stats and make them look closer than they really are, because they're really not that close. He's really hard to bring down. Javonte Williams, a strong runner. Coaches are already praising him in his play here the first 2 weeks of the season. I think the change is coming. I really do. Javonte Williams is about to take over this backfield, and I believe that it could happen this week. I'm going with Javonte Williams as a start, and I'm going to sit Melvin Gordon in week 3. Now we head to Las Vegas for the Dolphins and Raiders, and it's not good for Josh Jacobs owners. He's already listed as very doubtful. Not what you want to hear this early in the week, and if that's the case, I am completely out on this backfield altogether. Last week, Kenyon Drake was outtouched by Peyton freaking Barber, 13-12. And what did Peyton Barber do with those touches? 13 carries for like 32 yards and absolutely sucked. That's what Peyton Barber is. That's what he's always been. And yet, John Gruden wants to use him in this backfield instead of committing more touches to Kenyon Drake. I don't get it. But Miami was just dominated on the ground by Buffalo. But honestly, can we trust a backfield here between Kenyon Drake and Peyton Barber if Josh Jacobs sits? No, I really can't. If for some miraculous reason that Josh Jacobs is fully healed, probably won't happen, I would start Josh Jacobs, but between Kenyon Drake, Peyton Barber, hard pass. For Miami, it's really hard to at least not flex Myles Gaskin on a weekly basis, but are they without Tua? Sounds like they're going to be without Tua, which means more Jacoby Brissett in the backfield. Does that mean more checkdowns, more running to try to control the game a little bit more and not put too much pressure on Jacoby Brissett? The ceiling, it just isn't as high right now, though, without Tua under center. The pass work that he receives on a weekly basis, Myles Gaskin, is a plus, right? I mean, he's somebody out there getting right around 5 targets a game. Really kind of what we talked about with David Montgomery, right? If you get 5 targets for 4 or 5 receptions for 30, 40 yards, it helps give you that safer floor if he doesn't have that big game on the ground. And that's why I'm going to continue to start him as a flex play here in week 3. Now, Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading out to LA to face the Rams, and I can't tell you how many comments I received just last week. This guy doesn't watch the news. Doesn't this guy know that Ronald Jones is starting? I got a lot of those comments, and it's all because I said to start Leonard Fournette over Ronald Jones. I mean, have you all seen Bruce Arians the past couple years? The guy is not committed to Ronald Jones at all. And if he misses one play where it results in a hit or a sack of Tom Brady or a drop ball or a fumble, sorry, dude, you're hitting the pine. And it happened basically once again this past week where Leonard Fournette outtouched the starting Ronald Jones 16-7. Rojo just can't stay on the field. If he could, he would be a decent fantasy football star because he's very explosive, but he just can't stay out there long enough to really want to be able to start him in fantasy football because at a moment's notice, the dude could just sit the bench rest of the game. But I'm going to go ahead and sit everybody in Tampa Bay because I don't see a whole lot of running in this game really at all. You got Tom Brady and all of his weapons going up against Matthew Stafford and all of his weapons. And they have a banged up Darrell Henderson in LA, right? There's a chance that Darrell Henderson does not play with a rib cartilage injury. No idea what that really is, but I asked the doctor. He said that's a very painful injury that could result in maybe potentially 3 weeks out. Something we're going to pay attention to here as the week goes on. It's something I guess he can play with if he wants to play through the pain, but we will wait and see and update you as the week goes on. But this is a very difficult matchup. Going up against Tampa Bay, one of the best rush defenses in all of the NFL. And do I really want to take a gamble on an injured Darrell Henderson or Sony Michel? I really don't. I think it's going to be a lot of back and forth passing. I hate to sit Darrell Henderson when he's healthy, right? He's running back 15 overall in fantasy football, which is great. He's played good in a good offense. But right now, with the injury, the matchup, I'm not going to start Sony Michel, and I'm probably going to be safe and go ahead and sit Darrell Henderson unless we get word that he's 100% full go here end of the week. Seahawks and Vikings now. Did we just dodge like 14 Dalvin Cook injuries this past week? I swear every time I saw him on the TV, he was on the sidelines or he was down on the field. But it seems like he was okay because he was out there throughout the entire game. Possibly a sprained ankle, but we'll have to wait and see. Something else to watch here as we get further into the week. Obviously, you know if he's healthy, you don't ever sit Dalvin Cook. As for Chris Carson, he's been inefficient, right? Really not overly efficient on the ground, but he's being saved by touchdowns, which is great, especially there in week 2. He's the clear lead back in Seattle. Seattle's deep ball is really working right now, right? Between Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, even Freddie Swain, there's some deep balls going down the field for the Seattle Seahawks, which is great because that's going to open up running lanes for Chris Carson. The volume may not be huge, but the touchdown upside will be, and so will that potential in the passing game. Both Chris Carson and Dalvin Cook going to find themselves in the start column here this week. Which takes us to Green Bay and San Francisco, and who the hell is going to be the running back for the San Francisco 49ers? I mean, everyone hurt. If you look at the injury report for the running backs in San Francisco, it doesn't even list names. It just says everyone. And I really don't know what to expect. Is it going to be Trenton Cannon? Is it going to be Kerryon Johnson? No matter what it is, I'm passing all together. Now, if magically Elijah Mitchell or Trey Sermon or Jermichael Hasty become 100% available by the weekend, then I'll consider starting one of them. But as for Kerryon Johnson or Trenton Cannon, I'm not taking that risk this early in the season. I'll just wait and see what happens with the other running backs that are all hurt right now as the week goes on. But for Green Bay, yeah, you start Aaron Jones, and he showed you just why last week. This dude absolutely dominates the Lions on week 2s. Have you noticed his stat line the past 2 years? This guy has absolutely killed the Lions both times in week 2 with 38 plus fantasy points each of the last 2 years. The ceiling is huge. And now that Green Bay kind of has their identity back, you really started to see that swagger come back second half of that ball game on Monday Night Football. We've seen San Francisco be vulnerable on the ground before to those Detroit Lions, so you better believe that I'm firing up Aaron Jones once again here this week. Which leads us to Monday Night Football, Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys, and not a great week 2 from Miles Sanders, kind of but he's still the clear-cut number 1 in that backfield, which we'd love to see. Dallas has been strong against the run, though, the last 2 weeks. However, they've faced Tampa Bay and the LA Chargers. Not exactly 2 teams reliant on big backs running between the tackles on the ground, so we really don't know how they'll respond to a backfield of a Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. I think it's kind of a risky start, but I honestly have no issue starting either one of these guys this week. Kenneth Gainwell, more of a deep league stash, more of a deep multi-flex play, a 14-team league if you're looking for somebody in a PPR type scoring. He has that kind of James White-esque aura around him in this offense, and I think he's got that potential for a safer floor. The ceiling going to be just somewhat capped, though, because of Miles Sanders. For Dallas, it's apparent both Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott have a role in this offense, but that's okay. They can both produce in this offense. Philadelphia hasn't been tested on the ground yet either. They faced Atlanta and a banged-up San Francisco backfield. They haven't really been tested either with a backfield the likes of Zeke and Pollard, and I expect them to find some success kind of like they have just here recently. For me, you're obviously still going to start Zeke Elliott. We'd love seeing him find the end zone. We hate him losing touches and targets to Tony Pollard, but the explosiveness of Pollard also makes him a start for me here this week. All right, so those are my starts and sits for the running back position here, week 3 fantasy football. Don't forget to get in on that giveaway now before it's too late. The autographed Justin Jefferson jersey, the Trevor Lawrence rookie card, the Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0 could all be yours. A total value of over $250. All you got to do, head over to prizepicks.com or download the app, create that new account, use referral code headliners, and make that $20 minimum deposit. They'll match it all the way up to $100, and then you'll be entered in to this giveaway. Looking forward to giving that away here in just the next week and a half or so. So get in before it's too late. But hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week, and we'll talk to you later.